Charger Career Connect. This is Rob Thompson. That's Jeff Kennerly over there from Hard Hit in New Britain.
Yes,
And
sir.
yeah, so we're gonna get into it today a little bit. This again is for you, connecting you student athletes to alums that have gone on and rising stars and doing great things out there in business, and connecting you from a networking, a mentorship standpoint, as well as allowing us to share stories of, even though I got the gray fuzz here, yeah, Jeff is creeping up there too. So, Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me and allowing me to, be a resource. That's really important to me, and being able to support the department and support the student athletes there is something that I try to hold dear.
Awesome, and just I think for us too is connecting, our student athletes right now with folks that have been in their shoes. And you were a two-time captain there in the men's basketball team back in 2000 when you graduated 2004. But and then you got your MBA as well, and you could talk about that. But tell everybody tell your story. Where I shared you're a Connecticut guy as well, but why New Haven, and while you were here, what activities were you involved with above and beyond basketball?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm a Connecticut guy. So born and raised in New Britain, New Britain High School, Hurricanes, high school basketball player, band member. And, for me coming out of high school, I actually wasn't, I was athletic. I, played basketball, ran track. My music was my passion. So I actually was a drummer in the band there. And so coming out of high school, not really being highly recruited, I actually went to a JUCO. So I went to a junior college called Manchester Community College. And 2 years there, was able to really put together a career that piqued the interest of, at the time, it was Coach Hotaling and Coach Jay Young. Coach Hotaling was who was responsible for getting me to come to the university. And then as I accepted the opportunity to come, he said, "Oh, wait a minute, Yale's calling," and then he left and went to Yale. So he went to Yale, but I was able to play with Coach Jay Young. And interesting, like my story is one of, just truly taking opportunities. Transferring in from the junior college, I actually didn't have enough. I lost credits, and so came on board and wasn't able to play immediately. And so I never forget having the conversation with Jay Young and him saying, "Look, I'll do this for you. If you come in, you work hard, you come to practice every day, you do what you need to do, next year, and you got to pay for this year, and oh, by the way, you have to pay for this 1 year that you're doing this, you'll have a scholarship." And, I'm always someone's like, if you give me an opportunity, that's all I need. And so, that first year I was at every practice. I, was in, and it was a tough year the first year, but, so that for every time they didn't do something right or do something wrong, or they did something wrong, I was in the gym, right along with them. Get out rebounded, I'm in the middle of the rebound drill getting it, because the team didn't, may not have, done what they needed to do the night before. And so you go through that process, and it just, Jay held to his word. The next year I had a scholarship, and I had a really good time there. The reason why I chose UNH between some of the other schools, I had some Division I's looking at me, was because, one, my best friend from high school was there, so that helped. And I was familiar with a number of the people around there. Jay, again, was someone who, when I sat down with him, I felt like, he truly was a man of his word, and was like, "Listen, if you come here again, do your work, you will be on the team, and you're going to be a key part of this." And so between him and then Alberto Alberti, who was he's a Windsor guy. And so if anyone's from Connecticut, the Windsor basketball team, especially in the late 90s, was a powerhouse. And they got us 1 year in the playoff. We had them. I missed the layup. And so it was the ability to connect with Alberto. Alberti knew he was a winner. Big Smooth, or we call Keith Wright. They had a real solid team that I felt like could do some things. And so I was excited about being able to do that. And the rest was history. It's close enough to home. I love New Haven. And so it was the right fit for the right time.
Yeah. So talk about being the right fit. I mean, you took advantage of your time here, and you were two-time captain, but you're also the vice president of SAC. You were heavily involved in,
Yeah.
what was happening on campus.
Yeah.
How important was that to you in not only building your network, but your confidence in being a leader, your confidence in business, and how was that the foundation of your career?
Yeah. Yeah. So the opportunities that were afforded in terms of being the second vice president for the student athlete for SAC, and a lot of the conversations that I was able to have with everything from, I tell people all the time, when I started my career in Big Four accounting, I had the personality where I could, in the morning, coming out of Sheffield, have a laugh it up conversation with the service team there and the janitors and the service team, but then turn around and have, a sit down meeting in the Berkshires office or with leadership for the university, and being able to have that diversity of experience helped me in my career because coming out of UNH and starting at Deloitte and Touche on the audit side, what you do is, as an auditor, I am going in and I'm talking to accounts receivable clerks to the CFO. And I had to be able to come across and get the information I needed for what I was doing in a manner that was productive. And so that is what I learned heavily during my time at UNH, given some of the positions I took on there. I was involved with BSU. I think I was the liaison between the faculty and the student athletes in terms of having direct conversations about what it means to be a student athlete, in terms of, if you see, someone in class and they have an early morning class and maybe they nod off, here's the why. Like, having professors understand the why behind that. Maybe they had, a 4-hour drive from a game, got back to campus at 3 a.m, and then they have you at 8. Let's understand that dynamic and what that means to be a student athlete, and trying to progress those conversations so that there was mutual understanding on both sides, so that we didn't find ourselves being penalized for kind of going out and promoting the university, right? And winning for the university and doing what we love as student athletes. So that was a big piece of it. And I think, I was fortunate enough to be able to have the support of administration, of the coaches, to be able to do that.
Talk about that transition period then. You started talking about a little bit, but start talking about that transition period from being a student athlete. You came back, you got your MBA, you worked in the equipment room, so you started building that foundation and that discovery. You were an accounting major, right? So that was, and you talked about Deloitte as well, and you shared a story about meeting some senior partners during our golf classic. When did you really start thinking about your career? When was that moment in college when you're like, I really got to get a kickstart to this thing?
Yeah.
So what was that kind of aha moment?
What is interesting, so it actually started in high school, and here's why. I had a teacher in high school who was an accounting teacher, and he would talk about the accounting. He talked about the accounting profession. He talked about working for the Hartford Whalers. Now, some of you guys are not gonna. Some of the people who listen to this,
none of them will know. None of them will know.
They might know the hat. They may see the hat, and the hat has come back into vogue. Yeah. But I was in Connecticut when we actually had an NHL team, the Hartford Whalers, and this teacher would talk about how he would work these long hours in accounting, but he would talk about how much he was billing the Hartford Whalers. And so listen, I don't come from means. I'm first generation college student, and so father was a machinist. And so blue collar through and through, and so my, to me in high school, I'm like, so I was like, well, how much are your billing hours? And he's telling me, oh, it's $100 an hour. So as a high school student, I'm like, $100 an hour, 40. So I'm doing the numbers. I'm like, oh, that's the career I need to go into. So I actually came into college with this idea, I want to be an accountant. What he didn't tell me was that was the billing rate that the firm charged, and you don't get anywhere near
what you're getting. Yeah.
And so
right. They don't tell you that part.
They didn't tell me that part. But listen, he did what he had to do. He got me into business. And so I came in with this idea of, okay, I do want to do accounting. Now what truly was my passion and still is financial literacy and making sure people understand how, like, to make right decisions with money. That's really what the passion is. Accounting was a conduit. And so being able to have my accounting degree and have my MBA with a concentration in accounting and taxation is great for that. But what I've developed and learned over the course of my career is that where I really wanted to be is in where I am now, which is with Morgan Stanley as a wealth man, as a investment advisor, financial advisor. This is the culmination of the experiences I had before. And so when you start thinking about, or when I start thinking about when I was in college and I realized I had to turn on the kind of switch and really get locked in, was my junior year, after the Charger Classic, where again, there I was a four caddy for like 3 or 4 partners out of Deloitte who were out of the office in New York and Stanford. Had spent the full day with them and realized then by that interaction, like, okay, I need to figure this out. Like this is go time, because as many student athletes, at least for me, my summer times were dedicated to my sport. And so I didn't have the internships. I didn't have the opportunities to be able to, develop relationships in these firms. Now, I did work for, I think I did there was a couple of jobs I had gotten through, like Robert Half, account temps, and to feel like I need to have some accounting on my resume. But it truly was just saying, okay, I need to focus on this. How do I do this? Leveraging the connections that I made through the Charger Classic, following up with them. And then that segued its way into, me being able to have an offer coming out of my MBA to start at the firm in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about building that foundation, even though, accounting was just a piece of it. Doesn't mean you have to be accounting the rest of your life.
Yep.
It's just a great foundation to have that understanding of financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts now on what's happening with this freelance on-demand economy that these student athletes are going to be faced with? Long gone are the days that you work like your dad worked as a machinist, probably a union guy, probably the same career for 35 years, has his retirement, has his pension. Those days are over.
Oh, long gone.
Right? So
long gone.
What advice do you give now for financial literacy for a student athlete to understand that debt will kill you early on, right? Mm-hmm. All those things, like what is that advice that you would give?
Yeah. So for what I try to do is, when you start talking about the economy and where we're now, it's twofold, right? So on one hand, the days of old where a corporation, you would come in and they would give you a pension and you just, put your head down and work and you'll be, they'll take care of you. Those are gone. And everything is about you have to fund your own retirement. You have to fund your own self. And so the first thing first, anytime you get a job, make sure you're contributing to your 401ks. That's easy investing. You guys are we're in an environment right now where information and the cost of being able to do things is so low. So you have so much information, first and foremost, to be able to learn about between YouTube and all the YouTube videos that you can. I mean, I personally go to YouTube for stuff around the house. All right, I don't know how to do that. Let me go on here and figure, someone has a channel. So there's opportunity through that as well, though. And so the days of you having to find that job that you can just stay in long term are gone, because you can find someone who is looking for your talent. And so there's a much higher entrepreneurial spirit, I think, in the country now because of technology. With that, though, you have to make sure you're making the right decisions to be able to do that, right? So when we talk about debt management and, just being very thoughtful about how you approach your spending will have a long-term impact, not only primarily on it can have an impact on your career. Because if you overspend, now you have to keep up with that expense level, which means you have to get a job that maybe you don't want to necessarily have because you need to have a certain salary to keep up with where you are. The lower the debt, quite frankly, you have more freedom to be able to say, I don't need, I can do what I want to do. I can go out and start my own business because I don't have a heavy fixed cost associated with my living.
What do you say to those that, and I know there's a lot of people that employers they'll do a credit check before they do a background check. So they want to know that if you're 24, 25 and you have a really bad credit score, chances are you did something to mess that up and there's some issues there. Yeah. What advice do you give kids right now that are carrying some student loan debt, probably running up a credit card? Like, how do they get out of that right now? Like, what should they start thinking about doing?
Yeah. So the student loan stuff, that's one that is, that's explainable, right? As long as you finished. Let's put it like that. If you have a degree to show for it, or what we'll call the receipt, if you have the receipt for those loans, as long as it were reasonable, right? You weren't just the idea is you want to optimize your time in school. So take the classes, get through the classes, but not make that a 6-year or 7-year program where you're paying for it just to get a 4-year degree. Right. So be thoughtful about making sure you start to get through it. And one way to get through it is leveraging like summer classes. They can be less expensive. And so being able to leverage that, or even leveraging in the summertime, leveraging classes at community college that will transfer those credits in. Like there are a number of ways to be able to reduce the overall cost of education. When it comes to credit cards, that's something you have to pull back on those. If the old saying, one of my mentors always says, if I can't pay for it in cash, I'm definitely not paying for it in credit.
Yeah.
Because it's a cost, right? And so, that thing that cost you $100 on a 24% interest rate credit card is now $124. It just doesn't really make sense.
I just know my father burnt this into my brain when I was younger, saying, if you can't pay for a vacation in cash, you don't go on vacation. You don't charge it, So that was the old school guys, but right. Now's a little bit different, but he was right. He was right. Even though I'd never listened to him, but he was right.
Do we ever?
No.
Until the two were like, well, he did say that.
He did say it. He was right about it. So what advice would you have given yourself? Everything that you've known now in your career. I mean, you worked for some good ones. You worked, at Deloitte, like you said, Yale, Pitney Bowes, now you're Morgan Stanley. You are just chipping. You're building that foundation. You've been at it for a while now. What advice, looking back at it, would you have given yourself when you first came in, just about your overall experience as a student athlete, your overall experience, as a athlete participating within the school community, the University of New Haven community? What advice would you have done different? What would you have done differently?
That's so great. So I was thinking about this. I think the one, if I had to say I had a regret about my athletic time at UNH, I feel like during my time there, I could have been more productive on the court. And I think that was, and part of that was because I didn't really appreciate the moment that I was in. I didn't truly appreciate the teammates I had. Caro, who's a top 10 on the on the scoring list and on the assist list. We had a great team, and we did. Listen, we went to NCAA tournament twice. We were successful, so it's not like we were we underperformed. But it was just like, I wish we could have done better, right? And when I say we, I say me. I mean, I could have done better. I think that for the on the work side, I think I maximize what I could do in terms of being able to leverage relationships. And when I tell you leverage relationships and actually come on the other side, the story I was going to say about Miss Chen, Debbie Chen, is the year I redshirted, or the year I had to pay. I was had a work study. So again, I was in the equipment room, work study, and Debbie Chen came down. I was in the weight room, and at the time I had left the weight room, walked out, went into the equipment room to talk to the then equipment manager, and she came down, and I wasn't in there, right? And so I'm not in there doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and there were some guys in there working out. And so I told them, hey guys, make sure you rack your own weights. Y'all are adults. Like, rack your own weights. I'm not cleaning up after you. And we had an understanding. So she comes in, weights are on the floor. They were doing a rotation. So she's like, there's weights on the floor. And I went to explain to her what was happening, but we had a misunderstanding. She felt like I was being argumentative. And so shifts over, I get back to my room. This is when we had answer machines still. So I have a message on my machine from Coach Jay, from Jay Young. He's like, Jeff, call me now. What did you do? I said, I don't know. What did I do? So I called him. I said, what's up, Coach? He said, why were you arguing with Debbie Chen? I said, I wasn't arguing. What are you talking about? He explained to me, no, Coach, I went into the thing. It's a misunderstanding. He's like, you need to go apologize. I was like, apologize? I apologize for what? Now, pride. Apologize? I don't apologize for. I didn't do anything wrong. He's like, listen, she signed your scholarship, first and foremost. But if there's a misunderstanding, you have to clear that up. And so I went to her. That, like, literally got in my car, drove across campus, and was like, look, I understand that, you took what I said as being argumentative. We had a sit-down talk. That changed, I think, the trajectory of my experience at UNH, because it went from something where it seemed like it was combative, and I went and faced it immediately and had a sit-down discussion with her, and then she was my biggest advocate going forward. That was semester 1 of my first year at UNH. And everything after that, she was one of my biggest advocates in terms of, being kind of, Jeff, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And even after I left, those first 5 years after, when I came back, she was always kind of engaging with me. And so I think in that instance, understanding that you have to be able to manage relationships in the right way, take your pride out of it, take your ego out of it. I don't think I have it on me. I carry this little chip in my pocket. It says ego. It's an ego chip. And anytime I'm talking with people and someone has a differing opinion of me, I need a different opinion about a topic. I have to kind of touch that pilot. Okay, don't let your ego get into this conversation right now. Let's understand what it is. Like, what's your perspective? Here's my perspective, and allow that to be the discourse, as opposed to, allowing my ego to drive how this conversation goes. And so I think that's a piece that I would say for my former self. In that instance, I figured it out, but I didn't always know that. That wasn't always the case. And so, always be ready to learn, always be in a position where you're uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the reason that is as you as athletes know, when you see your biggest gains, it's after you've had your best workouts and your muscles are sore, you're tired, and they're tight. But typically you start seeing gains after that because you stretched your muscles as far as they could go, and now they're coming back stronger. And so if you're constantly uncomfortable and learning and stretching yourself, like I said, I started Deloitte, audit and accounting, same thing at Pitney Bowes and Yale. Then I was in management consulting. I worked at a nonprofit doing some stuff there. All those experiences helped me to be where I am now, but I was uncomfortable in each one of them because it taught me a different skill. And it culminates with what I do now, and being able to work with individuals, work with business owners, work with nonprofits. All those skills are there. And I'm just like, boom, here's what you need to be thinking about, and here's why. And so just, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That wasn't something that I think I embraced when I was in school. And so I would say do that, and never be afraid to kind of push the limits on your, when you get into your career path and take on things that will be stretch assignments, that will be things that you didn't think you should be doing, but it may make sense, and pulling out that skill set.
There's one thing that's kind of consistent with a lot of our alums. I talk a lot about enjoying the moment. And you said that when you first started, like, I wish I enjoyed the moment. I wish I took advantage of the moment more so when I was there. One of the Hill brothers talked about be where your feet are, like enjoy this piece of it, regardless of what's happening around you. As we talking right now, it's the fall of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Don't know about what's happening with seasons.
Yeah.
My time here was, I had 3 head coaches in 4 years. But
Wow.
what did that teach me was that things change constantly. Yep. You're going to have a new boss. You're going to have a new supervisor. You're going to have another thing that's going to hit you, and how you adjust to it. At the time, at 19, 20 years old, you don't have the experience in life to understand that these things will happen to you. You start looking for something to blame, or you dig in, you turn it around, look at it as an opportunity. So the things you learn when you grow older, right, Jeff? So thank you again for spending the time and sharing your stories. I mean, shoot, I could sit here for another 2 hours with you and keep on going. But Jeff, how do our student athletes get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Jeffrey D. Kennerly. That's on LinkedIn. And then I do have a website, my formal kind of business website. Quite frankly, if you just Google Jeffrey D. Kennerly, all my stuff pops up. And so, reach out to me especially on LinkedIn. I'm really active on there in terms of sharing information and sharing insight. Always looking to be a resource. I've had some conversations with some of the men's basketball players over the years. Try to keep up with them as much as I can. But listen, at the end of the day, we're all Charger Nation. And if there are, interests or questions you have about any of the things that I've done in my career, always open and available to have the dialogue and the discussion and to share kind of insights in terms of my journey.
Yeah, so please reach out to Jeff. Definitely connect with him, as you should be with all of our mentors that have been on here, all of our alums that have been on here, first and foremost on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Jeff is going to join us later on this spring semester and be there for Q&As, and then certainly open to some mentoring opportunities. So if you have any questions, if anything he said resonated with his story, similar to your story, please find those mentors that you feel comfortable with, that that could help. And Jeff is definitely a great example of hard chargers. Like a lot of us, the University of New Haven was a second chance and a second opportunity. And it's not if that opportunity is given to you, it's what you do with that opportunity is the thing that matters. And it mattered to Jeff and I a lot. So remember, like I say all the time, you're going to figure out what you hate doing as far as a career way before you discover what you love to do. So everything is never off the table of what you want to do with your career and building. No job, no internship is never a waste of time. You're going to figure out the person that you like to work for, not necessarily the business that you want to work for. So all of those things matter. So those are things we talk about a lot here. Please, again, reach out to us. Jeff, all your information is going to be here listed below, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll have that in there. Thank you again for your time.
Oh, thank you again. Thank you again, Rob. Thank you again for everything you guys are doing there at the university with the athletics. Keep it up. I'm proud to see the movement of the department, and look forward to seeing kind of where we continue to grow.
On behalf of Jeff, this is Rob. You're watching Charger Career Connect. We'll see you next time.